Yeah, my name is Wade Beardsley. Spelling of my last name is Beardsley.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a detective with the Eau Claire Police Department.
How long have you been employed by the Eau Claire Police Department?
Approximately 8 years.
And how long have you been a detective with the Eau Claire Police Department?
2.5 years.
And do you have any specific assignments in the Eau Claire Police Department at this point?
Yeah, I'm assigned to the Chippewa Valley Regional Computer Forensics Lab.
All right. And that's the same lab that we just heard about from Detective Stettel?
Correct.
All right. And how long have you been assigned to that lab?
2.5 years.
All right. So that was your assignment when you became a detective?
Yes.
All right. And do you have any specific training in the area of computer forensics?
I do, yes.
Can you describe briefly for the jury what your training is in the area of computer forensics?
Sure. I've attended courses on the basic data recovery and analysis of digital evidence. I'm also trained up on several different forensic programs within our lab as well. So products that are offered by a company called Celebrite, which is primarily mobile forensics, and then also magnet forensics as well.
All right. And I understand you were not present when Detective Stettel testified as to methods of obtaining information from mobile devices and also from things like hard drives and flash drives, those types of things. But are you familiar with the procedures that Detective Stettel uses?
Correct, yeah.
You work with him regularly?
Every day.
All right. And do the two of you follow the same general procedures in how you download devices?
Yes, we do.
All right. So rather than have you testify again as to all those different procedures, I would assume you would use the same procedures that Detective Stettel does?
Yes, I do.
So let's talk about what you did in this case. Were you asked to analyze a number of items that relate to this particular case?
I was.
All right. Specifically, let's start with, were you asked to analyze an LG phone?
Yes.
All right. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I am showing you, Detective Beardsley, what has been marked for identification as exhibit number 251, which is a disc, be it a DVD or a CD, that appears to have some initials on the back of the envelope. Whose initials are those?
Those are mine.
All right. And it appears to also, yeah. So, did you examine the disc that's contained within that envelope that has your initials on it?
Yes, I did.
All right. And did you compare it to the information you obtained when you attempted to extract information from that LG phone?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about the procedure first off on that phone. Were you able to extract information following the types of procedures that we heard about from Detective Stettel that involves attaching the phone to Celebrite, et cetera?
Right. So for this particular device, I did not use the more traditional sense of digital forensics examination for this type of phone.
Why was that?
It was due to the current state that the phone was in.
You couldn't do it with that?
Correct.
What type of procedure did you have to follow to obtain information or do an extraction of that phone?
So I had to do what's called a chip-off extraction on this device.
Does that have something to do with potato chips?
It does not, no.
Okay, what does it have to do with that?
So chip-off involves the complete disassembly of the phone and the removal of what's called the printed circuit board. It's basically the main circuit board that's inside the cell phone. And from there, what you have to do is you have to very carefully remove the flash memory chip, microchip that's attached on that printed circuit board. And that microchip has all the data on the cell phone.
All right, so that little chip, however big it is, and I assume it's relatively small?
It's probably about the size of a nickel.
All right. That has all of the data contained on it that cell phone contains.
Correct.
What do you, once you carefully remove that from the circuit board, what do you do with it?
Yep, so we take that chip, we put it in a Serida reader, it's called, SERIDA reader, and I attach it to what's called a write blocker that's attached to my forensic workstation or computer, and I do what's called an image. I create an image of that microchip, so it's basically just a copy of the contents of that microchip.
Okay, so basically what you're doing is kind of like the procedure that you'd normally use with a laptop or that type of device.
Correct.
All right. And once you do that, what's the next thing you do after you create that image?
Right, so once that image is on my forensic workstation, I use a different program. In this case, it was Cellebrite's physical analyzer program, and it basically parsed and decoded that raw extraction that I got from that microchip.
All right. Do you do something, I know Detective Stettel talked about hash values. Do you do something like that to try and make sure your image is the same as what was on the chip itself?
Correct. I did compare the hash values, and they were the same.
All right. And once you, now you've got your image, what do you do with the image?
Yep, so once we got the image, I parsed and decoded that image using a program called, once I got the image, I parsed and decoded the image using physical analyzer.
And parse is P-A-R-S-E?
P-A-R-S-E-D.
Okay.
Parsed.
And, all right, and then what do you do with that?
Then I generate a report. So basically what happens is the program will essentially categorize the artifacts within that image. So it'll break it down into images, videos, contacts, text messages, geolocation information, et cetera.
So then you end up with essentially a similar type of report to what you would have gotten if you could have done the more traditional Cellebrite type of.
Correct. It would have been
extraction?
exactly the same. Yes.
All right. Now, did you understand that as it relates to that LG phone, that phone had been found submerged in water?
Yes, I was aware of that.
All right. And does that create issues for you when you're trying to extract? Or in other words, is that going to destroy the information?
Right. It really kind of all depends on the situation and what type of state the phone is actually in. Unfortunately, in this case, we were still able to recover the data even in its current state.
So despite the fact that it had been submerged in the water, you're still able to obtain the information?
Correct.
Would the fact that it's submerged in water, would that change any of the information on it, or would it just potentially make it inaccessible?
It would have either made it inaccessible or we would have been able to access it. It really would have been one or the other.
Okay, so it wouldn't change if an image was of a tiger, it wouldn't change it into an image of an elephant?
Correct.
All right. And the information that you were able to obtain, is that's contained on Exhibit 251?
Yes, it is.
All right. Your Honor, I'd move, again, subject to the same limitations that we've talked about, the admission of Exhibit 251.
All right, Exhibit 251 will be received. Again, not necessarily the data, but the disk will be received.
All right. And did you also receive at some point in time a Samsung model SMJ100 VPP cell phone to examine?
I did.
All right. And did you follow the procedures the general procedures using Cellebrite to obtain an extraction on that phone?
Yes.
All right. And can you tell us what types of extractions you were able to perform on that Samsung J100 VPP?
Yeah, so I was able to do a logical file system and a physical extraction on that device.
All right, so you were able to do all three of the types of extractions that we heard about from Detective Stettel?
Correct.
All right. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Detective Beardsley, I'm showing you what has been marked for identification as exhibit number 258. It appears again to be a disc, be it a CD or a DVD, and on the back of that envelope that contains it, there are some initials. Whose initials are those?
Those are mine.
And did you compare the disc that's contained within that envelope with the contents of your extraction report you completed as it relates to the Samsung model SM-J100 VPP?
I did.
And are they the same?
They were.
Your Honor, I move the admission, again, subject to the same limitations with exhibit number 258.
Any objection?
Nope.
Okay, exhibit 258 will be received, again, subject to limitations that, as it relates to the use of the data therein.
And may I approach, actually, did you also receive a Samsung model SMG900A for analysis?
I did.
All right. And did you follow the same general procedures that we've discussed as it relates to that phone to do the extraction?
Yes, I did.
And did you have to do anything different, like the chip off, or did you use the standard procedure?
It was a standard procedure.
And with that phone, what types of extractions were you able to do on that phone?
I was able to conduct a physical extraction on that device.
Were you able to do the logical or the file system extraction?
I don't believe so.
All right.
I'd have to refer to my report, but I don't believe I did.
With referring to your report, refresh your recollection on
Sure.
that? Just a second. First off, would that refresh your recollection?
Yes, it would.
And second, counsel, do you have any objection if he just looks at his report briefly to refresh his recollection?
Can you tell me what page number it is?
Sure. He may not have a report that's got our page numbers. So if I can see it, I'll give him a copy that's got our page numbers. And
Yeah, I just need you to tell me
It's just the
what it
G100,
is, so I can
right?
find it.
Okay. Let me get my copy of it so I can give the page number to the council. That would be 1900, council.
Thank you. So-
Yep. So look at, and then go on to 1901. So looking at, can you look at this copy, Detective? This will have your, it's paged a little bit differently, but it should have the same information. So just
Okay.
look at that, review it, and then I'll take it back and
Okay.
ask you some questions.
Yeah, it looks like it just completed the physical bootloader extraction on this one.
All right. Does that refresh your memory as to what extractions you were able to do on that phone?
Yes,
And what extractions were you able to do on that phone?
it was a physical extraction.
All right. May I approach your honor?
You may.
Detective, I'm showing you what has been marked for identification as Exhibit 257, which appears to be another disc, be it a CD or DVD. It contains some initials on the back. Whose initials are those?
Those are mine.
And did you compare that to the extraction report that you had created as it relates to that Samsung Galaxy SMG 900A?
I did.
And is it the same?
They were the same.
Your Honor, I move the admission of Exhibit 257, subject to the same limitations we've discussed.
All right. Exhibit 257, any objection?
No.
So that will be received again with a limitation. So it's received as being a copy of the data contained in the device, but again, not necessarily the data contained therein.
And in addition, I believe you also had an Apple iPad that you were asked to examine.
Yes.
And were you able to obtain extractions from that iPad as well?
I was, yes.
And all of the extractions that you did after you completed them, did you provide the reader reports to one of the detectives that was involved in an investigation of this matter?
I did, yes.
Do you recall who you gave them to or provided them to?
I can't recall.
Okay, that's fine, but the detectives that were involved in the investigation?
Correct.
All right, thank you. Anything else? No further questions for Detective Beardsley, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, cross-examination?
Yeah, just very briefly, I want to just ask you about the phone that you had to do the chip-off method.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. You were told that that phone belonged to Alex Woodward?
I don't know specifically what I was told regarding the phone, but
Okay, so you don't remember which device belonged to which person necessarily?
correct.
So the question I have about this chip-off is apparently in order to do that, it means the phone is no longer usable, correct?
Correct.
Does it also mean that it cannot again be, that it cannot be analyzed again by a different analyst because it's no longer in the same condition as when you receive it?
So the image that I extract from the microchip can be reprocessed or can also be parsed or decoded with other forensic programs, but the physical device is no longer operable. But we still have the chip itself. So the chip that actually contains the data, we obviously retain.
And just one other thing, you could talk about physical analyzer. Physical analyzer is not the same thing as what's called a physical extraction of a phone, correct?
Physical Analyzer is a program made by Celebrate.
Correct, and that program, you were using that program with what's called a logical extraction or an advanced logical extraction.
For the chip-off phone?
Well, for all of the phones.
Well, it depends on what phone. So for the one that was chipped off, that was a physical extraction on that device.
Okay, but the other ones used a logical extraction?
I mean, we kind of went through that already, but the SMG 900A, we were able to get a physical from, a physical
Okay.
extraction, and then I believe the other one we were too, so.
Okay, so that's not something that's impossible
No.
to do. Okay, nothing further.
Any redirect?
Yeah, just one question relating to that. Does the manufacturer of the phone make a difference on what types of extractions you're able to do?
Yes, absolutely. So it really depends on the make and model of the device, on what type of extraction we're able to conduct on the phone.
And are Apple devices different on what types of extractions you can do?
Yes, they are.
What's different about Apple devices?
On Apple devices, at this time, we're only able to do what are called advanced logical extractions. It's just a logical extraction plus more information that Celebrite offers the program as well that you're going to get.
And was that the same in March and April of 2018?
Correct.
All right, thank you. Nothing else.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Detective Beardsley. You may step down. I see you also free to leave.
Can you state and spell your name for the record?
Is Jeremy Wilterdink, Wilterdink.
What is your occupation?
Police officer with the Menominee Police Department.
How long have you been employed in law enforcement?
In 19 years.
And do you have any specialized training with respect to computer forensics?
Yes.
Can you briefly describe that?
I'm a certified computer forensic examiner through IASIS and a Celebrite certified physical and logical operator.
And you work for the Menominee Police Department.
Yes.
So does Menominee have a sort of computer lab where you can perform some extractions on different computer devices?
Yes.
On July 27th of 2018, did you receive some items of evidence from the Dunn County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, 4.
And did you subsequently create a Menominee Police Department property inventory record listing those 4 items?
Yes.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 245. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
And what is it?
It's Menominee Police Department property inventory record for this case.
And does it list the 4 different items you were asked to perform extractions on?
Yes.
And is it an accurate copy?
Yes.
Move Exhibit 245.
Any objection to Exhibit 245? Okay, Exhibit 245 will be received.
And were you able to perform extractions on items 1, 2, and 4 that you were provided?
Yes.
Can you briefly describe the process that you followed?
So number 1 was a Asus laptop, so that we followed more of the traditional practices of computer forensics on that, being taking it apart, removing the hard drive. We connect the hard drive then to a device called a write blocker. That prevents our computer from writing anything back to that hard drive. We make a true and accurate copy of the data on the hard drive. With that one, then I built case files for the sheriff's department using 2 different programs. One, Access Data's FTK. Access Data's FTK, a forensic toolkit. And the second one is Magnet Forensics Internet Evidence Finder.
And then did you put those reports on a disk?
An external hard drive, I believe.
Hard drive.
All of it goes on an external hard drive and it's ultimately given back to investigator Stalker.
And did you do anything to alter the contents of that device in any way?
No.
And then item number 2, an Amazon tablet?
That one was extracted using a Celebrite's UFED Touch 2 device. We use that for mobile device forensics of all sorts, tablets, phones, even does drones.
So it made a copy of that device,
Right,
essentially.
right.
And was that put on do you know if a hard drive or?
Yes, the same.
And did you do anything to alter the contents of that device in any way?
No.
Item number 3, a Samsung tablet. What was the difficulty on that item?
That one was connected to charge, never did take a charge. So that then got beyond the capabilities of our lab, and that was ultimately returned to the sheriff's department with the recommendation that it go to Eau Claire's lab, because they have some different tools over there that we just don't have.
And item number 4, a LG cell phone.
Yes, that was extracted as well with the same UFED Touch 2 and the data put on that same external hard drive.
And did you do anything to change or alter the contents of that device in any way?
No.
Anything else? I have no further questions.
All right, any cross?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you, Officer Wilterdink. You may step down.
Could you tell us your name, please, and spell your last name for the court reporter?
It's Justin Greuel, Greuel.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm a detective with the City of Eau Claire Police Department
How long have you been so employed?
for 13 years,
And how long have you been a detective?
about 3.5.
And prior to that, what were your duties with the Eau Claire Police Department?
I was assigned to the patrol division.
And were you assigned as a detective as of March 23rd of 2018?
Yes, I was.
On that date, were you assigned to do anything as it relates to this particular case?
Yes, I was.
What was the first thing you were assigned to do on March 23rd of 2018?
At approximately between 2:30 and 3 p.m., I was asked by Detective Sergeant Piper to assist him and Detective Wutschke in checking a residence in the City of Eau Claire. Detective Sergeant Piper and Detective Wutschke.
And Piper would be P-I-E-P-E-R,
Correct.
and Wutschke would be W-U-T-S-C-H-K-E?
Correct.
All right, thank you. And so you were assigned to go to what apartment?
I believe it was 511 Cameron Street, and that's the residence of Alexander Woodworth.
All right. And did you go to that apartment?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do when you arrived at that apartment?
We received permission from the roommates to enter the residence and check for Mr. Woodworth.
And do you recall what roommate of Mr. Woodworth was there when you arrived?
I don't recall the names of the
All right.
roommates.
And did you go in the apartment?
Yes,
And where did you go in the apartment?
essentially everywhere to make sure that he wasn't there or to check for him.
Did you go to the room that was identified as Alex Woodworth's room?
Yes, I did.
All right, and I believe we had a witness earlier today who said it would be the middle bedroom on the upstairs. Does that sound about right?
That sounds correct.
All right. And when you went to that bedroom, that middle bedroom in the second floor, did you observe any of Mr. Woodworth's specific property located in that bedroom?
There appeared to be electronics in the room, and I believe I recall specifically a laptop.
All right. Did you observe a tablet?
A tablet, yes.
All right. And did you observe a backpack?
Yes, I did.
All right. After you checked the apartment, did you find Mr. Woodworth, by the way, at the apartment?
No, I did not.
After checking the apartment, what did you do?
At that point, Detective Sergeant Piper wanted us to go back and check the area that Ms. McCandless was last seen. So that was in that 430th Avenue area in Dunn County.
And did you go to that area?
Yes.
Did any other detectives from the Eau Claire Police Department go with you to that area?
Yes, they did.
Who else went?
Detective Sergeant Piper, Detective Prock, Detective Wutschke, and Detective Streeter.
And Streeter would be
Get a
S.
spelling of Witchkey, or did we get that? Did you get that for the reporter? Okay,
Okay.
fine, sorry, go ahead.
And is Streeter Streeter?
Correct.
All right. And how did you go, what route did you travel to get to 430th Avenue in Dunn County?
I rode with Detective Prock, and we drove out Cameron Street or County Highway E from the city of Eau Claire out to 430th Street, 430th Avenue.
Does Cameron Street turn into County Highway E?
Yes, it does.
All right. So to get from Cameron Street to County Highway E, do you have to turn off at all?
No,
All right. Until you got to 430th Avenue, did you have to make any turns off of the highway that you started on when you were on Cameron Street?
no.
All right. So you get to 430th Avenue, what do you do when you get there?
At that point, myself and Detective Prock spoke with a resident on that street that had been involved in the initial 911 call or call to police the night before.
That was Mr. Sipple?
Yes, it was.
And as you were talking to as you and Detective Prock were talking to Mr. Sipple, did you receive any communications from the other officers involved?
Yes, I did.
Well, what was the essence of that communication?
Sergeant Piper advised that he had located a muddy dirt road about one parcel over to the east from our location. He advised that he located within the first section of that muddy road what appeared to be footprints coming out of the roadway.
All right. And at that point in time, what do you do?
We finished our conversation and went with, or drove over to Detective Sergeant Piper's location.
All right. And as you were, did you go to that location with Detective Prock?
Yes.
When you arrived there, what do you see?
A long dirt road that was covered in mud due to the recent runoff of snow and water. In that first section of the roadway, it located what appeared to be footprints coming out of the roadway
All right.
in the mud.
And looking at that roadway from the road, was it flat? Did it have an incline or did it have a decline from 430th Avenue along that muddy road?
From 430th Avenue had an incline.
All right. And could you see over that incline to what was on the other side of the incline?
No, I could not.
And what did you do now? Are all the detectives, all five of you in that area now?
Yes.
All right, what do you do now?
At that point, we began to approach the crest of the hill to preserve any evidence that was located in the roadway. We went on the east side of the road in the grassy area and began our traversing the roadway.
All right, so the east side would be the side away from the Sipple residence?
Correct.
All right, so you're on the east side. As you're going up the road, are you seeing anything as you're proceeding up that muddy road, or up the side of that muddy road?
Some more footprints that were in the mud in the roadway.
All right, and the prints that you're seeing, do they appear to be made by someone wearing shoes or not wearing shoes, from what you could see?
From what I could tell, I couldn't see any tread patterns that would be consistent with wearing shoes. It appeared that they were just either barefoot or socked feet.
All right. And what do you do then?
We continued up the roadway until we reached the crest of that hill. Upon reaching the crest of the hill, we could observe a sedan down the roadway further.
All right. And besides the sedan, are you able to observe anything that drew your attention?
As we got closer, I could observe that the back driver's side door was open, and as we approached further, it appeared that there was a head or a torso of an individual hanging out of that door.
Detective, I'm going to show you what has been previously marked and admitted as exhibit number 84. Does that look like about what you see as you're approaching?
Yes, it is.
All right. As to, if we can publish it, 84 again, I want to talk with.
What's that exhibit, 84?
84, we've got it on.
Okay.
We can just
Any
switch to the
objection?
computer.
Well, okay, that's already in evidence. You may publish it to the
It's
jury.
already been admitted.
Okay, yeah, you can show that.
All right.
You want to use the Elmo?
Yeah, no. We've
Okay.
got it here.
Very good.
If we could just turn the lights down a little bit. So Detective, we're seeing what we understand and has been later identified as the body of Alexander Woodworth there. Can you tell us, is this the condition of the situation as you arrived on that scene?
Yes, it is.
Did you observe, or did you personally do anything to alter any of the items that we see there? Alexander Woodworth's body, what appears to be some deer horns, the blanket or the cardigan that's shown there?
No, I did not.
All right. Did you observe any of the other officers that were on scene do anything to alter any of the items or anything at the scene?
I did not, no.
And besides the items that I mentioned, did you alter anything at that scene while you were there?
I did not alter anything, no.
All right. Was anything done to attempt to confirm if the individual, Mr. Woodworth, was deceased at that point in time?
I don't believe anybody went up to Mr. Woodworth at that time. Based on all of our trainings and experience and my training and experience, I could observe that he was obviously deceased.
All right. So it didn't require you to go up and try and find a pulse or anything like that to know that?
Correct.
All right. At that point in time, what do you and the rest of the detectives do?
At that point, all five of us began to back out from the scene to preserve any evidence that would be there and maintain scene security until Dunn County Sheriff's Office arrived.
All right, thank you. You can switch that off now. Thank you. Now, at that point in time, you backed off to make sure and secured the scene. Do you do anything else to attempt to try and preserve the scene as well?
Yes, I did.
What did you do?
Based on a forecast of some rain that was coming in and higher winds, I returned to the Eau Claire Police Department and tried to find some items that could preserve the integrity of the footprints that we located in the mud.
And did you find something?
Yes.
What did you find?
Several cardboard box tops.
Simple as that.
As simple as that.
All right. And did you return to the scene with those box tops?
Yes, I did.
What did you do then?
I located three footprints that appeared to have the best detail or evidentiary value. I placed those box tops over the top of those footprints to maintain or to keep water out as best as possible, and then secured them from blowing away with rocks or bricks that were in the area.
And did you do anything else at that scene at that point in time?
No, I did not.
All right. And did Dunn County officials eventually arrive at the scene?
Yes, they did.
And when they arrived, what was your role and the rest of the Eau Claire detectives' role?
My role was to maintain scene security until relieved and told I could leave.
And did you do that? Did you make sure the scene was secure until relieved?
Yes, I did.
All right. And from the time of your arrival at the scene until when you left to obtain the box tops to cover those footprints, was anything done to alter that scene that you observed?
Nothing that I observed.
All right. And did you do anything to alter that scene prior to placing the box tops or prior to your leaving to get the box tops?
No, I did not.
And outside of placing the box tops in an attempt to preserve those images, did you do anything else at the scene?
No, I did not.
Right. Anything else? I have no further questions for Detective Greuel.
Who's going to do cross? Mr. Nelson, okay, whenever you're ready.
Can I stand up here, Judge, to ask him questions?
Yes.
If you can turn that, I can't see it.
All right.
Yeah, just try to make sure that you're not blocking council's view or the jury's able to see.
Can you see it, sir?
Yes, I can.
Is it possible for you to, would it be more comfortable for you to stand there, or you want to sit there? You're
Nope, I can stand, that's fine.
Does this look like the area that you were just testifying about?
Yes, it does.
Have you seen this before?
I have not seen that image before, no.
If I tell you this is 430th and this is the muddy road that we were talking about, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And this is orientated, the north is to the top, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And so, this, it's already been admitted, but it looks like what you saw when you went out there, again, in a two-dimensional, very non-detailed form, right?
Correct.
And so when you were walking up the path, you basically you were walking on this side of the path, the east side, correct?
That's correct.
And when I say path, I really mean the muddy road, correct?
We were walking in the grassy area that was next to it, but
You were
yes.
east of the muddy road is what I
Correct.
say. And you were concerned because the weather was changing, right?
Yes,
It was March 23rd, right?
correct.
And as you know from being in this area, the weather changes quite quickly at the end of March here in Wisconsin, right?
Absolutely.
And there was rain in the forecast,
There appeared to be rain coming, yes.
sleet, snow, some sort of precipitation that time of year, right?
Yes.
Did it actually come in the next 24 hours?
To my best recollection, I'm not sure. I don't remember getting rained on while I was out there, though.
Okay, or snowed on, sleeted on.
Precipitated on.
Okay. You walked in when you walked in the grass, I imagine you did that because that was a much harder surface, right?
Because I saw the footprints in the mud, we didn't want to disturb anything that would be near them, so.
And as you're walking through the grass, you're looking at the muddy road to continue to make observations of that, correct?
The muddy road, the grass in front of us, the general area as a whole, yes.
And as you're walking, you're wanting to make sure you're not passing over other impressions or evidence, correct?
Correct.
And you noticed as you're walking through the grass in this area, you're not making impressions with your feet.
And did you do anything to alter that scene prior to placing the box tops or prior to your leaving to get the box tops?
No, I did not.
And outside of placing the box tops in an attempt to preserve those images, did you do anything else at the scene?
No, I did not.
Right. Anything else? No further questions for Detective Greuel.
Who's going to do cross? Mr. Nelson, okay, whenever you're ready.
Can I stand up here, Judge, to ask him questions?
Yes.
If you can turn that, I can't see it.
All right.
Yeah, just try to make sure that you're not blocking the council's view and the jury's able to see.
Can you see it, sir?
Yes, I can.
Is it possible for you to, would it be more comfortable for you to stand there, or you want to sit there? You're
Nope, I can stand, that's fine.
Does this look like the area that you were just testifying about?
Yes, it does.
Have you seen this before?
I have not seen that image before, no.
If I tell you this is 430th and this is the muddy road that we were talking about, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And this is orientated, the north is to the top, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And so, this, it's already been admitted, but it looks like what you saw when you went out there, again, in a two-dimensional, very non-detailed form, right?
Correct.
And so when you were walking up the path, you basically you were walking on this side of the path, the east side, correct?
That's correct.
And when I say path, I really mean the muddy road, correct?
We were walking in the grassy area that was next to it, but
You were
yes.
east of the muddy road is what I
Correct.
say. And you were concerned because the weather was changing, right?
Yes,
It was March 23rd, right?
correct.
And as you know from being in this area, the weather changes quite quickly at the end of March here in Wisconsin, right?
Absolutely.
And there was rain in the forecast,
There appeared to be rain coming, yes.
sleet, snow, some sort of precipitation that time of year, right?
Yes.
Did it actually come in the next 24 hours?
To my best recollection, I'm not sure. I don't remember getting rained on while I was out there, though.
Okay, or snowed on, sleeted on.
Precipitated on.
Okay. You walked in the, when you walked in the grass, I imagine you did that because it was a much harder surface, right?
Because I saw the footprints in the mud, we didn't want to disturb anything that would be near them, so.
And as you're walking through the grass, you're looking at the muddy road to continue to make observations of that, correct?
The muddy road, the grass in front of us, the general area as a whole, yes.
And as you're walking, you're wanting to make sure you're not passing over other impressions or evidence, correct?
Correct.
And you noticed as you're walking through the grass in this area, you're not making impressions with your feet. Agreed?
To the best of my recollection.
You're not sinking in, making shoe print impressions, correct?
I don't believe so.
It was a hard surface. Agreed?
From the best of my recollection, yes.
Okay. And that continues from 430th all the way until you get basically in the area of the trailer or however far you walked. That is, the condition of the path that you walked continued to be hard and you never sunk in and made an impression. Agreed?
I don't recall. I do recall the portions of the grass area being wet. I don't recall if there was muddy or if I sunk in, but I do recall the grassy area at some point being wet.
Okay. And are you able to indicate on this or point out on this diagram where that is, or would that just be a guess?
It would be a total guess.
We don't want you to do that. Do you know how, on here there's a thing that marks tire marks. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you remember observing marks in the grass that seem consistent with tire marks from a car?
Yes, I do.
Were they in approximately this area?
From my best recollection, yes.
Did you walk, where did you walk in relation to the tire marks?
I don't recall exactly. I know I didn't step on them. I believe I stayed to the east of those tire marks as well.
Okay, so as you continue up, you move farther to the east once you see the tire mark. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
But you walked past the beginning of the tire marks closer towards the green trailer in the car.
Correct.
How close did you get to the trailer in the car?
I believe I walked on the east side of the trailer around to the front. That's when we, I don't recall what other detective was with me at the time, but it was a part of the checking to make sure no other people were within the vehicle.
Okay, and so you walked, if this is north, you walked to the south, past the south end of the trailer, is that right?
Yes.
And then walked west towards the muddy roadway, is that right?
Yes, I believe
So
so.
you got, I'm not saying directly, but south of the front of the vehicle, right?
In that general area, yes.
And how close were you to the vehicle from there?
Enough to safely see that there was nobody else within the vehicle, no other persons or threats,
Okay. 10 feet, 20 feet?
approximately.
Okay. And throughout that area where, from 10 feet in front of the car to the south end, to the front of the south end of the trailer, to around the trailer, along the tire marks, all the way back up to 430th, your feet were not making any impressions in the ground. Agreed?
I can't say that with certainty, no.
Okay. You don't recall making any impressions in the ground. Agreed?
Not to my recollection.
So you agree?
I agree that I don't recall if I made impressions in the ground.
Great. And again, I'm not trying to embarrass anybody here, but how much do you weigh?
At that time, about 210 pounds.
Okay. Do you know how much Ms. McCandless weighs?
No, I don't.
You've never, those are the only questions I had about this. Thank you. You've never met with Ms. McCandless, correct?
Correct.
You never spoke with her
That's correct.
prior to your arriving on the scene on March 23rd. You had no involvement in the case?
That's correct.
Again, I realize that you had some involvement on that day around the city of Eau Claire, but prior to March 23rd, you had no involvement on the case.
Correct.
And essentially, your only involvement was that particular day, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any redirect?
Just one question, probably. I know council asked if you recalled making any impressions in the ground. Do you recall not making impressions?
I don't recall not making impressions.
All right.
I do know that my shoes were ruined because of the water, though.
Okay, thank you. That's all I've got.
Okay, any recross?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right, Detective Greuel, you may step down, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And is he free to leave?
Yes,
Okay.
Your Honor.
All right, you're good to go. Have a great day. Okay, we're at 4:33. Any other witnesses, short witnesses the state would like to get on today? Or,
I don't believe so, Your Honor. I think the only other witness we would have intended to call would be Officer Reeves, and we need to do a few things before we call him, so.
all right, then, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to recess for the day. And again, and I think this time, maybe rather than just improvising, I'm going to read a little bit from the instruction that I read to you on that first day. And again, just a reminder, your duty is to decide the case based only on the evidence presented at trial and the law given to you by the court. And that includes evidence actually received in evidence by the court. Anything you may see or hear outside the courtroom is not evidence. Do not let any personal feelings about race, religion, national origin, sex, or age affect your consideration of the evidence. Do not begin your deliberations and discussion of the case until all of the evidence is presented and I have instructed you on the law. Do not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else until your final deliberations in the jury room. Do not research any information that you personally think might be helpful to you in understanding the issues presented. Do not investigate this case on your own or visit the scene. Do not read any newspaper reports, and that's a little bit outdated, or any web-based reports, again, TV, radio, internet. Do not consult dictionaries, computers, websites, or other reference materials for additional information. Do not seek information regarding the public records of any party or witness in this case. And again, a reminder, any information that you obtain outside the courtroom could be misleading, inaccurate, or incomplete. And relying on this information is unfair because the parties would not have the opportunity to refute, explain, or correct it. Do not communicate with anyone about this trial or your experience as a juror while you are serving on this jury. Do not use computer, cell phone, or other electronic device with communication capabilities to share any information about this case. For example, do not communicate by blog, email, text message, Twitter, Facebook, half a dozen other social media forums that I can't remember, maybe haven't even heard of yet. Just keep in mind that if any of you discuss this case or make a post on Facebook, for example, word would probably get back relatively quickly in this day and age. Again, I realize that it is tempting when you go home in the evening to discuss this case with another member of your household, but you may not do so. You may have acquaintances that are following this case on the media, and they may want to talk to you. They may want to discuss the case or give you information. Don't let that happen. Do not let anyone communicate with you about the case. And again, if anyone does so, you should report that to me. This case must be decided by you, the jurors, based on the evidence presented in the courtroom. People not serving on this jury have not heard the evidence, and it is improper for them to influence your deliberations and decision in this case. After the trial is completed, you will be free to communicate with anyone in any manner if you choose. And this is just until you have completed your service as jurors. And again, these rules are intended to assure that jurors remain impartial throughout the trial. If any juror has reason to believe that another juror has violated these rules, you should also report that to me. If jurors do not comply with these rules, it could result in a new trial involving additional time and significant expense to the parties and the taxpayers. And again, you are to decide this case solely on the evidence offered and received here at trial. And with that, we're going to excuse you for the evening. And, thank you for your patience. All right. Okay, we're going to have you, if you're here and ready to go at 8:30, before 8:30, so we can bring you in at 8:30. We'll try to make sure we're ready for you right at 8:30, okay? Thank you. Have a good evening. All right, yeah, Council, any additional issues you want to take up at this time, or just discuss what we're going to take up tomorrow?
Just to briefly I had something to just give them on the Reeves matter, but if there's something you want to do before that?
Yes, Judge, when you read the case at the beginning a couple days ago, I know that the information indicated March 23rd of 2018. The state would move to amend the information in this case pursuant to 971.29 sub 2 to March 22nd, 2018. I believe at trial, the court may allow amendment of the information to conform to the proof where such amendment is not prejudicial to the defendant. Given the fact the information indicated on or about March 23rd, I don't believe that there would be such prejudice, and so I'm requesting to file an amended information, changing the date to March 22nd, 2018.
All right, the state or the defense wish to be heard on that issue?
No, Judge.
All right, the court will allow the state to amend the information to conform to the proof with respect to the date of the alleged crime. I think that's no surprise really to anyone. It's just a mistake. Okay, now as it relates to Detective Reeves or Officer Reeves. Okay,
Just briefly, Judge, I'm handing the state a copy of the transcript we prepared in my office, so it's, you should check it. We're not going to be offering it at any point, but I believe here I've marked with pink tabs from page 12 to page 24, approximately 1943-minute mark of that day to the 1958-minute mark is what we think is interview number 1, in which Reeves and Shields are speaking with Ms. McCandless from DOJ, MM, and NN. So I'll hand that to Mr. DeFore. We'll have a chance to review that tonight, and we can take it up in the morning then to see if we're in agreement that that's interview number 1, so that we know what we can deal with regarding the rule of completeness.
all right, and is there any authority that either counsel would like the court to review overnight?
I think probably the leading case on the rule of completeness, Your Honor, would be State versus Eugenio. It's EUGENIO. It's 219 Wisconsin 2nd 391, a 1998 decision of the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
All right, and does the defense have any authority they would like the court to review?
No, Judge, I believe that's the leading case.
Okay. Sure, there aren't any other cases that are,
If we find one, we'll let
There are a few others, Your Honor, but I think that's probably the most, probably the leading case and the one most cited as it relates to the rule of completeness and does the most thorough job of discussing it.
all right.
And if I
That's the Supreme Court one, not Court of Appeals one, right?
That's the Supreme Court, yes, is the cite I gave.
All
And
right.
if I understand the state's position is, and it may change tomorrow, I understand that, but that interview number one is what they intend to ask Mr. Reeves about, but they don't intend to ask him questions about what they're calling interview number two. So at this point, we're not trying to get into interview number two. I'm just wanting to make sure that we're both on the same page as to what the state and us are calling interview number one.
Okay, that sounds perfect, because yes, that is the only one we intend to ask about. We'll make sure we'll go through with Officer Reeves as soon as we're done here and make sure that that is what he understands was interview number one as well.
All right, now, what about, what is the plan, if, whatever you're willing to share in terms of the plan for witnesses for tomorrow?
All right, well, we're going to have Officer Reeves, Detective Piper, all right, we're going to, Jennifer Morris, Kelly Swartos, Officer Vang, Louis Bjork. Okay. Whenever you're ready to go further, what was the last one that you got?
Officer Vang.
Okay. Louis Bjork. Officer Feeney. Former Detective Conkey. Deputy Reed, I believe. And I think that should cover it.
Deputy.
And I'm sorry, former Detective Streeter, I believe he actually has a different title now, but it was then Detective Corey Streeter.
Can I?
We might get into a few other witnesses from the Dunn County Sheriff's Department, but it just depends on how things move along.
Who would those be?
Potentially, which ones? Okay. Potentially Deputy Christensen, Deputy Mosel, Captain McRoberts. Oh, okay. Scratch Captain Roberts for, oh, Mosel, I'm sorry. All right,
So we have Christensen and McRoberts. correct?
and Sergeant Mayer. I think that should probably cover
Okay. Can I ask
all that we would have.
one follow-up question about one of those witnesses?
Sure.
With Mr. Conkey, do you intend to get into Ms. McCandless's statements made on March 23rd, or are you going to do that with Detective Crock?
We're going to do that with Detective Prock.
Okay.
Okay, so are there any videos, anything that might have personal identifying information that you anticipate for tomorrow? Just so, and again, as I understand it, with Court TV, there's a 20-minute delay, and so there are things that they can do to blur images or remove images. So, we need maybe some heads up as to what might be presented that could fall into that category.
I believe, I don't plan on playing any of the interview with the defendant by Officer Reeves, but if the defense does, there is an interview, a recording of that. I'm not sure if they want to play any of that. That's up to them. Officer Vang, are you going to play any of the video with him or recording with him? Okay. But there is also a recording with him. I don't know if the defense would intend to play any of the recordings with him, so there is that possibility. I know with, and it's not my witness, but I know with Ms. Morris, there may be some images that may be shown, but our intent is not to project those images that are relatively sensitive in nature, but rather we've created a binder that we will provide to the jurors so that they can look at them and they're private, they're maintaining the privacy of the defendant so that they're not shown generally to the public. So those would not be able to be viewed anyway for that, because they're not going to be up on the screen.
All right, well,
Question about that, because I might use those in cross-examination, so is that gonna be marked as an exhibit, or?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get a copy of the binder so we can use the exact same
Yes.
thing? Okay,
And
thank you.
I know when we spoke.
Is there one copy of it? And there are copies of there's one copy of the binder for each juror, so it doesn't have to get passed around. And there's a copy for counsel.
We'd just like to see it for that reason, and it may be that all, the images we have may be better quality, and so, no, I just want to see, I know,
Sure.
that's all.
all right, then, and then any, again, suggestions, overnight, if you have any suggestions about any amendments to the meeting order to protect personal information, but I think the first step really is having some idea that there might be something in what you might present, telephone numbers, dates of birth, addresses, and I'm assuming, again, I think some of the lay witnesses, for example, if they're providing their address, that may be something that we can address. But, okay, anything else that council would like to take up tonight? Any unresolved sidebars or other issues anyone would like to put on the record up to this point?
Nothing from the state that I'm aware of.
Anything else?
No, Judge.
Okay, then I would just ask council if we're going to have, just so we would have some ample time before we have the jury here, again, if council could be ready at 8:15, all right? And then if we have to go on the record, we can get that taken care of and get the jury